I speak right now?
Yes.
My name is Alexander Gannon.
Okay, the witness is yours, Mr. Saunders.
So I introduced you as AJ. Is that a preferred nickname you go by?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but your proper name is Alexander.
Yes.
Okay. So is it okay if I call you AJ?
That's fine. That's
All right. So AJ, how old are you?
25.
Do you live in the Green Bay area?
Yes.
Did you grow up here as well?
Yes.
Did you go to high school and middle school here?
Yes.
AJ, do you know somebody by the name of Shad Therian?
Yes.
And how do you know Shad?
I've known him since middle school.
And what middle school did you go to school with him at?
I think I saw him before a couple times in like intermediate, but we mainly ran up at Bayview.
Okay. Bayview Middle School?
Yeah.
Okay. And throughout, schooling, and I guess now you're an adult, did you keep in touch with Shad?
Well, after about maybe it was the first year I moved into my apartment was when I started really connecting with a lot of people that I've ran into or I've talked with, and Chad was one of them.
Okay. So there's a reacquainting period, I guess?
Yes.
All right. AJ, do you also know somebody named Taylor Coronado or Schabusiness?
Yes.
And how do you know her?
Since middle school.
Similar to Shad?
Yes.
Did you remain kind of friendly with Taylor as well?
Yes.
Sorry, is that a yes?
Yes.
Sorry. So, AJ, I want to ask you about February 21st of 2022. It was a Monday. Do you recall the date I'm talking about?
Yes.
Okay.
So I don't know when this happened, but I don't know.
Sure. So, do you recall a day where you were, I guess, hanging out with Shad and Taylor?
Okay, I didn't. You were saying the date, but I didn't.
Sure.
I didn't have context. So.
Sure. So I want to ask you then. I'll ask it this way: at some point, did you become aware that Shad had passed away?
It was only. It was only after when the day before I was heading out to vacation to see my parents.
Okay.
My dad specifically.
All right. And was that in February of 22?
No, it was a week after. I think it was. So it was in February. No, I went. I had vacation in June, but I don't remember. I'm sorry. I have a lot of mental problems.
Sure.
So it's hard to keep a constant catalog of memories.
Sure. So, are you referring to when you learned that Shad had passed?
All I knew was it was a week. It was a week after, something like that. I don't know for sure. All I knew was basically the day after, a couple days after, I was going to the Eastman apartment buildings because that's where I knew Taylor was at the time. And ironically, the same day that I went there, the police were knocking on my door, specifically, to try and get into reach for me with the situation. And the only thing that I knew at the time was basically they asked if I knew the whereabouts of Shad and Taylor. So that's the closest thing I can remember. It's just
Sure. And I know we're talking about something a long time ago, and dates may be a little fuzzy. Is that fair?
Yeah, so sure you don't.
So that time you were talking about where law enforcement was asking you some questions, do you remember telling them about a time you were hanging out with Shad and Taylor?
Yes.
Okay. Can you tell us about that?
Yes. I was drinking a little bit belligerently, so it's the only time that I looked at the clock was before I left my apartment. So it was after 10:30, 10 around that time frame. And basically it was I just decided to stop dissociating a lot, and I felt bad for not talking to a whole lot of friends that I used to talk to, like Taylor and Chad. So I just hit up Taylor randomly. I was like, "Hey, like, what's up? Are you going to hang out?" And then, basically, I went over to the apartments, and specifically when I got there, we were just chilling, chopping it up, like how we always do. And basically, I was like, Taylor was asking like, do you wanna hang out with Shad? She was asking me like for consent to hang out with Shad, to bring him over, and I was like, yeah, that's fine, that's cool.
Okay.
And so,
could I stop you right there? I'm sorry. I just have a quick question. So when you said you were at the apartment, which apartment is this?
the Meadowview East apartments.
Okay. Is that kind of where you thought Taylor was staying, or whose apartment was it?
It was it was the same apartments that I lived there. So it was like I'm sorry, what?
Sure. So the apartment is on Eastman that you're talking about?
Yeah.
Okay. And I'm sorry, I interrupted. You were with Taylor, and then she brought up hanging out with Shad?
Yeah.
Did you meet up with Shad that night?
Yes, I did.
And where were you sort of hanging out with Shad then?
We picked him up, went back to the apartment, and was just chopping it up.
Is that the same apartment you were just talking about?
Yes.
All right. And I want to date myself. Chopping it up, what does that mean?
Oh, it's just like kicking it, talking about whatever, just small talk or anything. Just kind of having conversation.
Is it a pretty good, chill atmosphere?
Yeah, it was a good vibe.
No major issues or anything that stick out to you?
I never saw one thing that night.
Kind of Shad was acting normal.
Yes, he was.
Taylor was acting normal.
Yes.
And you said this was about 10 o'clock, 10:30 at night?
This was when I went to the apartment, like around that time frame.
All right. And this is still the apartment on Eastman?
Yes.
Okay. And then at some point, do you leave that apartment?
I left. I did leave. I left. Probably like at least maybe like a couple hours, maybe until like 1, 2 in the morning. I don't know for sure. It's like I said, I only looked at the time before I left the apartment, and I was a little drunk. So.
Okay. But at some point, you left the apartment. Were Shad and Taylor still at the apartment when you left?
From what I saw, I don't know, but that's what, yes, from what I saw.
And then after that point, had you ever seen Shad again?
What?
After that point, after you left that apartment, had you ever seen Shad again?
No. Ironically, I hit him up the day after, or like a couple days, like of the first week into the situation, and I call him. I message him about a song that he posted on his Facebook, which was like some rap song that I like. No, yeah, I just like randomly sent him a message that day. I was like, yeah, that shit's dope. And then I was like feeling a little, when I don't have people talking to me a whole lot, I get a little anxious. And then I'm like, hey, what's up? Like, I'm a little concerned immediately.
Okay.
But like I didn't realize until after my friend mentioned to me specifically about what happened.
And I'm sorry, I'm jumping around on you here. I want to go back to when it was you and Taylor, and
Yes.
you went to go pick up Shad. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. How did you pick up Shad?
Me?
How did you and Taylor go and pick him up?
Okay. Well, we took a minivan.
Who drove?
Taylor.
Do you know whose minivan that was?
No.
Okay. Was it a minivan that was at that apartment that you were at?
Yes.
And you went to Shad's house to pick him up?
Yes.
Thank you, AJ. I have nothing further. Thank you.
Mr. Freilich, do you have any questions?
Yes, I do. Mr. Gannon, good afternoon. You knew Taylor and Shad since middle school?
Yes.
Okay. And you went to school at Bayview Middle School? Yes?
Yes.
And then did you go to high school together as well?
A little bit until the freshman year.
Okay. Did you go
I went
high-
to 3 different high schools in my freshman year,
Okay.
so
Did-
it's bouncing a lot.
That's okay. Did you go to high school with Taylor Schabusiness
Yes.
at Bayport?
Yes.
And you kind of knew her pretty well, correct?
Yes. Enough to associate with her.
You were friends with her?
Yeah, to associate and be friends with, yes.
And was it your understanding that at least in high school, Shad Therian and Taylor Schabusiness kind of were boyfriend and girlfriend? They dated a little bit?
Yes. I don't know how the connection between them, but it seemed like at the time after the breakup with Corey, it seems like that's like the only person that she always chill with sometimes. Like whenever I see Shad, so more times over, especially when he's like chilling, I see Taylor or a couple other friends in that circle in there.
Okay.
They were pretty cool people.
Sure. Did you sometimes go over to Shad Therian's mother's house, Tara Pakinich on Stony Brook Lane?
Yeah, the year that I moved out, I visited a couple times, at least a handful of times.
Okay. Would you go over there to maybe eat or play video games and watch TV?
We wouldn't do a whole lot, but I just came. Typically, I was like the runt that would just be chilling with the whole pack, basically, of dogs that we're chilling with. You know what I'm saying? So
You just kind of hang out with the group?
yeah, just hanging out with the group. Yes,
Okay, all right.
basically, So.
Okay. Would you sometimes go over to Shad's father's house, Michael Therian's house?
Yes.
Okay. And was it such that Shad Therian, he lived with his father, Michael Therian?
At the time that I heard of,
Okay.
yes.
So you had been to Shad's father's house and Shad's mother's house, correct?
Yes.
And fair to say that you'd been over to the apartment on Eastman Avenue where Taylor Schabusiness was living, correct?
Yes. Yes.
And sir, you'd go over to that residence to kind of chill or hang out, listen to music, watch TV, whatever, correct?
Yeah.
You had Taylor's phone number?
I had her Facebook.
Okay. And as far as Shad Therian, you had his phone number or Facebook information?
Yeah, I had his Facebook at the time too.
Fair to say that all three of you, yourself, Mr. Gannon, Taylor Schabusiness, and Shad Therian, you all had each other's contact information, correct?
Yes, but after like a rough like patch with like a friend, I was like chilling. I just started dissociating. And I do that a lot for the past 10, 20 years. I just if I feel like people don't, if there's like a sort of discrepancy, I just cut you off. It's block you or whatever. And then that's the reason why the day before that situation with the murder, I hate Taylor because I just wanted to associate again.
Okay.
So
Now, Taylor Schabusiness has a father. Do you know her dad?
yes,
Okay. His name is Arturo Coronado. Is that correct?
yes,
Had you been over to Arturo Coronado's house?
yes.
And was that with Taylor?
It was not the. This was maybe a year or so before I visited. There's been very few times since I personally talked to Art. So
Okay. But had you been over to Art's house with Taylor in the past?
yes, I have.
So you kind of knew Taylor pretty well, fair?
Yeah.
Okay. And you knew Shad very well, correct?
Yeah.
Was it such that there were times when maybe you'd be hanging out with Taylor and Shad where they would be using marijuana together?
Prior
Yes,
acts aren't relevant.
Wait,
um,
no,
Stop.
Your Honor, I'll withdraw.
Thank you.
Questions withdrawn. Okay, ask another question, Mr. Freilich.
Did you see Taylor Schabusiness on February 23rd of 2022?
February 23rd?
Yes.
No,
How about the day before on February 22nd of 2022?
no.
You saw her on February 21st of 2022, correct? That was a Monday?
I don't know what day that was.
Okay.
That's just a little bit too out of my polymath. I'm sorry.
Okay, that's fine. But you did all hang out together and you drove over to Michael Therian's house. Is that your testimony?
Michael Therian?
Yes.
I think like all I remember. I don't know.
Okay.
So
You're not good with dates, correct?
I'm better with dates, just not like recently up for like the past 5, 10
Okay.
years. So
That's fine. So, prior to you being told that Shad Therian was deceased, the days before you were told that, you were hanging out with Shad and Taylor, correct?
yes,
And did you notice anything odd about Taylor as far as her mannerisms, her eyes, her speech, anything like that?
no,
Did you have any feelings that she was acting weird when you had contact with her? Bizarre?
no.
Had there been occasions where you've seen her and you felt that she was acting very odd or
Object,
unusual?
Judge. Relevance.
Mr. Freilich?
Well, I think it goes to his observations of my client, Your Honor.
Well, then you need to narrow down for a time frame for him. So I'm going to sustain the objection as to ask another question. Mr. Freilich?
Okay, sure. Mr. Gannon,
Yes.
in the week before you had contact with the police where you talked to the officer, had you saw Taylor Schabusiness in that period of time, is that fair?
Yes,
And when you saw her, was it just one time or was it several times? Do you
it
know?
was only one time.
Okay, and that one time when you saw her, did you observe her to be acting in any kind of bizarre manner?
No,
Okay. Okay, nothing further. Thank you very much.
Any redirect?
No, Your Honor. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. You can step down.